Right, so we're going to make this pretty Christmas tree bunting. It's quite cute, looks quite folky. It's quite simple to make. It's just like making a grey square but in a triangular formation. So let's get started. So I started with red in the middle. I'm going to make a slip knot. And I'm using DK yarn, double knitting, and a number 4 hook. Okay, so we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to stick our hook in that first chain. I usually like to have 2 strands over the top of the hook. I always find it's a bit more secure that way. Okay, and then yarn over, pull through, and then the loop that's on your hook, you're going to pull through the loop that we went through. So we're sort of joining the 2 ends of a very, very tiny ring that we've made now in stitches. It does look rather clumped together, for want of a better word. Right, okay, so I like to start my first stitch rather than doing a chain 3. You can do a chain 3 if you want, that's what you're used to, that's absolutely fine. But I prefer to make the stacked single crochet because it does mimic the look of a double crochet a bit better, I think, than chain 3. So for that, I don't chain to start with. I just had the loop left on the hook from when I'd closed that ring. And then I go back into the big space in the middle of those chains, in the middle of the chain ring, not into a stitch. And then we've got 2 loops on hook. I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2, and that creates a single crochet but without the standing chain, so it's kind of tilted to the side. Then, can be a little bit tricky, you're going to push your hook in between the V of that single crochet, and then yarn over, come back through, and then you've got 2 loops on your hook to complete another single crochet. That's why it's called stacked single crochet, one on top of the other. Okay, let's get a bit more yarn. Right, so that's going to act as our chain 3, our first stitch. As I say, if you're more comfortable doing chain 3, go for it. Okay, so 1, 2, or if you prefer, our first double crochet. The stacked single crochet is going to act as a stitch. So 1, 2, and 3. So that's your first cluster of 3. Then we're going to chain 1. Then we're going back into that big ring, and we're going to do 3 more double crochet. It's always a little bit fiddly getting started. Even I, after doing it all this time, still struggle a little bit. But once you get a few more stitches going, it's going to get a bit easier. Okay, so we're working in groups of 3. I've just done another 3, so I need to do another chain 1. And because it's a triangle, we're just going to do 1 more group of 3. So 1, 2, 3. And just remember to leave your starting tail long enough to sew in afterwards. We want it to look nice and neat on your bunting. Okay, so we've got 3 groups of 3 separated by a single chain. So I'm going to do 1 more chain to join back to the top of this stacked single crochet. So if you've got a chain 3, you're just going to work into the top of that, so the 3rd chain. I've got the standing single crochet or stacked single crochet sitting on top there, which is quite handy because it's an actual stitch rather than a chain. She says, not being able to get a hook in. I probably pulled it a bit tight, but yeah, can you see how it's acted as a stitch? Right, so we'll just slip stitch to there. Okay, so that's our middle done. We only need 3 groups. So if you're going to do it like me and make red, white and green version, then you'll want to fasten off there and get your next colour. Okay, so it doesn't look anything like a triangle yet, but it will. Okay, so I like to keep everything facing the same way, all the stitches right side up, because I think it looks a bit nicer. So we're going to keep it facing with your, the V's on the last row of stitches will roll slightly towards you. That's how you know you've got the right side facing. So that's where we've just finished off. So I'm going to go into the chain space that we did just before we slip stitched into there. Now you can do a slip knot and then take that through, but I prefer not to do that because I always think it makes a little bit of a lump where the slip knot is. So as I say, you can do it however you like, but what I'm going to do is leave fairly long tail and then just hook the yarn, pull it, whoops, she says, pull it through and then just hold on to it, set up that tension hand and then just hold the tail that isn't a slip knot there yet, we've just got the loop pulled through, hold it to the side of your tension hand and then make a chain 1, which still isn't going to secure that new yarn. That would pull away if I was to let go of this tail. So what I then do, because I'm going to do another stacked single crochet, but you can do this if you're going to do chains as well, I like to just go back in and then catch that tail in to this next stitch that I'm going to do for a single stacked single crochet again. So there's our first one. If you are just chaining, you probably would need to tie the two ends, the red and the white, together, if you don't want to have to obviously do this single crochet into there. And then, like before, push your hook in. It is quite stiff to try and push a hook in there, so don't worry if you're thinking that's wrong. It's not, it's right, with nice tight stitches. And then pull through and we've got that single crochet that sits on top again to work into at the end. So I just prefer that. And now that I've wrapped that over there, we don't need to worry about that. We can sew that in afterwards. And there's no little bump or knot from the slip knot. Right, so we want to make 3 into this chain space. And this is where it's going to start looking a bit more like a triangle. So 1, 2, 3. So I want to put 2 lots in there, chain 1, go back into that same space. I'm going to do that on in each chain space now. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you can see that we've got a corner there, first of the 3 corners, starting to take shape. Okay, so we don't chain at all and we don't work into any of these 3 stitches. We're looking for that next chain space there. And we're going straight into there with a double crochet. So we've skipped 3 double crochets there. And when you make your first one, try not to leave a long loop. Try and pull tight and knit the 2 together quite closely so it pulls your last one to your first one. That can be a bit of a skill, a bit of a thing to work on, but the more you practice, the neater they'll get. So 1, 2, 3, and obviously it's another corner, so we're going to chain 1 and then 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to skip these next 3, look for that next chain 1 space and do another corner. So again, try and knit those 2 together nice and tightly. 1, 2, 3, and then chain 1 and your last cluster of 3. And then we're going to slip stitch into the top of the stacked single crochet or the top of your chain 3. Okay. And there we go. So now it's starting to look like a triangle. And we're going to fasten that one off. And then we've got our green row, which will be the last row of the granny stitch. And just going to do exactly what we did last time and join it in next to where we've just finished off. So I'm using green. I'm going to do the same thing as before, hook into the chain 1 space, yarn over, pull it through, holding onto that tail. And then I'm going to make my chain 1 and then single crochet, and sorry, it wasn't really a chain 1, it was just sort of a slip stitch to attach the new yarn, and make our stacked single crochet. So I didn't quite catch that in like I did last time. Now what I should really do is redo that, but just to save time, I'm just going to catch it in with the next stitch instead. So I've got it this time. And now I can let go of that. I know that it won't unravel. Okay, so this is a side now, so we don't need to do the chain 1 and another cluster of 3 into this same space. We just need a cluster of 3. Okay, so that's our cluster of 3, and I'm going to move straight into this top corner. This time we are going to do 2 clusters of 3 because it's the corner. Again, make sure they don't stretch out too much at that point. 1, 2, 3. And it is likely that you're getting a lot of bunching up happening at the minute. Don't worry about that at all. We can stretch that out at the end. We can use an iron and steam it and pull it apart, or you can block it if you want to. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And we've done our top corner there now. So now we're going to move into the side space, so we don't need to do 2 lots, we're just doing 1 group of 3 DC. 1, 2, 3. And then we can jump straight into that top corner where we're going to do our 2 lots of 3. 1, 2, 3, chain 1. So this is my last round because I want these to be quite small to go around a Christmas tree. But if you want to make them bigger, you just keep repeating this pattern now. And you can make them as big as you like. Okay, so that's another corner done, and then 1 more side. And then jump to the last chain space for that top corner. 1, 2, 3. With a chain, another 3. 1, 2, 3. And that is the final round of the granny stitch done. So all that's left to do is slip stitch to the top of the stacked single crochet or the chain 3. Tight, and it is fiddly, but it just looks neater when it's much tighter. There we go. So then we're going to fasten that off. And all that's left now is to edge 3 of the sides in red. And then if you're doing it the same way as me, I'm going to use the white just to make the string, if you will, that ties it all together. Okay, so it's up to you. You can decide which way up you want your middle piece to be. You can either have it that way or whichever configuration that you want to show. Try and leave the ends on a side that you're going to cover with the last row, so you can trap that in. Okay, so I think I'll use that edge as my top edge. So now we're going to reattach the red. Right, so I'm going to do mine this way up, so I've got this outer tail end right on that edge, and it'll get caught in by the next edging that we're going to do. Right, so I'm not going to edge the top because we're going to edge that in white. So we're going to start in this left-hand corner, straight in like we would do if we were doing another round of the granny stitch. This time I am going to make a slip knot to join the yarn, because I'm only going to use single crochets around the edge, so they're not really a good enough stitch to wrap in the tail end. Okay, so take that slip knot through, keeping hold of the tail end, just try and keep that knot to the back of the work if we can, and then chain 1. And so I'm going to put 2 single crochets into this corner, because if it was another round of the granny stitch, we would want to put 2 and a 1 and a 2 of a single crochet just to stop it from pulling up, which you'll see we do on the next corner. Okay, so make sure that you don't cover up that first V of the first double crochet. It's easy to cover it up and skip and go straight to there, but it's better to work into that. It makes a neater finish. So we're just going to single crochet into every available V stitch at the top. And as we don't have a chain at all along the side, that's quite straightforward. So there's no chain space to work into, no awkward fiddly chain to work into. We're just going into each available ordinary stitch. Make sure you don't pull it up too much or leave it too loose. It wants to be nice and neat. Right, so that's my last double crochet, and then I've got a chain space to work into. So I'm going to go 2 singles, 1 chain and 2 singles, just to make a nice neat point to the bottom of the flag, if you will, Bunting flag. Right, so we're going to do the same thing there. Make sure we don't cover up the V of that first double crochet. Bit trickier because we've put so many stitches in there. Okay. And then we're going to have a little bit of tricky work to do where this knot is, so we can just go into the chain space. We don't need to try and work into that slip stitch that we finished off with. And some people like to work over their ends, but I always think that ends in disaster because eventually they do pull out again. So I'm not going to work over the end. I'm only going to work over that knot, and then I'll use a needle and just sew that end in afterwards at the back, a bit more neat. Okay, so I'm going to avoid working over that. Oops, and then working to that last, excuse me, double crochet, and then we're going to go into the actual space provided by that slip stitch. Not really a chain space, but it still looks quite neat to work into it like that. Okay, and then I am going to work into that double crochet that we've also slip stitched into, because I find that if you leap straight across to that one, it does look a little bit odd. So we've kind of created an extra stitch on this side just to make it look neat. We can straighten it out a bit. Keep going. We're nearly at that. I think I said working round 3 sides before. Sorry, I was thinking about a granny square. I mean, we're just going to edge 2 sides and leave the top for the white. Okay, so we've got back to that chain space there. So we just want to do 2 single crochet, and we can leave it at that. So you can see that this is bowing a bit and pulling up, but what will happen is I can press it and I can pull it and put it into shape. Or if you do want to block it, you can do. So if you've got blocking mats and pins and you know how to block, then you can do that. If you don't know how to block, you need cork or sort of a rubber mat and some things called T-pins, and then you wet your work, saturate it and pin it out, stretch it and pin it out on your mat till it's the nice sort of shape that you want, and then you just let it dry, and that will then dry in that nice position. But to be honest with you, I usually find projects like this, steam iron works just as well, because it's a cotton yarn, so it can stand quite high temperature, and a steam iron is all you need really for this kind of thing. Right, so I'm going to fasten that off, and then I'll show you how to do the edging, even though I've only made 1. My bunting has 5 flags on it, 5 triangles. So what I usually do is weave in all the ends, which is the real tedious bit. So yeah, sewing, should I say, not weaving. Sewing all the ends neatly on the back. So this is the front. The back obviously looks quite different, and the edging doesn't look as pretty on the back. And I think it's much prettier from this side. Okay, and then I'm going to just show you now how to put that edging on. Right, so the string to join it together is really, really straightforward and easy to do, which is nice. So we've got our slip knot, and then for the bunting, I've used 30 chain. You'll see this in the pattern, and put 30 chain in between each one as well. Because I want to use it on a Christmas tree, I want the flags to be fairly well spaced out so that you can get a nice drape around the tree with flags dotted around, not too close together. But obviously if you're using it for something else and you want them close together, just make less chain in between each one. Okay, so I'm not going to chain 30 now, because I'm just going to show you how to join the flags together. Okay, so I'm just going to make a few. Let's get the general idea. So yeah, just dead straightforward chain, and that'll eventually be your string to hang it up with. Right, so what we want to do here is the chain 1 that we would have done to complete that corner. So I'm going to keep the right side facing and the right side of my string facing, and then I'm just going to go into that last single crochet we made and slip stitch in, and then chain 1, and then I'm going to complete that corner with the chain, 2 single crochet. There you go, so that's dead straightforward. So we've joined that quite neatly and nicely now onto that corner in the white. Okay, so then I need to try and reveal that first double crochet again. and single crochet our way across, and that completes the last edge of the edging as well. Straightforward, because we left that side that didn't have the tail end to contend with. It'll look quite neat across the top then. So we've just got double crochets to work into all the way along. This is the easiest part really of making the whole thing. Okay, and then when we get to this end, we're going to put our 2 single crochet into that corner. Chain 1 and slip stitch into the first single crochet. Again, I've done it very tight, but it does look neater. Right, and then slip stitch, and that is how we create the string to go across the top. And then obviously once you've done your slip stitch into there, you're just going to carry on and do your 30 chain and repeat the process. So when you come to do your next flag, just do exactly what I've just shown you. Okay, and that is your bunting. So once your ends are all nicely weaved in and you've done your pressing, it'll look really nice. So like I say, I usually use 5 flags and 30 centimetres in between if I'm going to drape it on a Christmas tree. I don't think you should try and go for a really, really long length of bunting to wrap around the tree, because it can get quite tangled, and every year you'll get it out of the cupboard and you'll be untangling it for about an hour before you put it on the tree. So yeah, better to make a few of just with 5 flags in my opinion. But yeah, enjoy.